Mark's not able to attend the meeting this evening, so please bear with me as I chair and pinch hit for her this evening. With thanks to Commissioner Jaretsky for that honor. In that capacity, I now call the February 26th, 2025 meeting of the Anacortes Planning Commission to order. Ms. Gleichman, will you please take the roll?
Commissioner Martin, Commissioner McCombs, Commissioner Ryan.
Here.
Commissioner Mills.
Here.
Commissioner Stoneman.
Here.
Commissioner Jaretsky.
Here.
Commissioner Courier.
Here.
Thank you. As per section 2.2 of our rules of procedure, we do have a quorum, and we'll proceed with our agenda. Before we take that step, I would like to entertain a motion to excuse Chairman Martin from tonight's meeting due to travel logistics associated with a medical situation in her family.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Can we excuse McCombs at the same time, or do we need a separate motion?
Would you? At this point, let's do it as a separate motion.
Okay.
Since we already have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Are there any other motions regarding absenteeism?
I would like to make a motion that we excuse Commissioner McCombs from tonight's session.
I'll make a second to that motion.
We have a motion and a second to excuse Commissioner McCombs. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
I make one.
Yes. For tonight's agenda, unless there are any proposed modifications, supplements, or revisions, which are allowed under 3E of our rules of procedure, we will proceed with our agenda as published. Seeing none, we will proceed. If you would join with me, please, in the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Item 3 on our agenda is minutes of prior meetings. We have none to review and approve this evening. So moving on to item 4, which is public comment. This is the opportunity for any member of the public to comment either in person or online regarding any subject that is not on our agenda for this meeting and that is directly relevant to the city of Anacortes. Do we have anyone online?
No, there's no one.
Okay. Moving then to item 5, which is a public hearing. And this evening we do have a public hearing, which is item 5A, regarding the 2025 Comprehensive Plan Update, specifically the proposed amendments to the goals and policies of the Capitals Facilities section and the Utilities section. These proposed amendments were reviewed by this commission on our at our January 22nd and February 12th meetings. Tonight we will gather information from the public. There will not be any formal recommendations or final recommendations or decisions made during this meeting. The information gathered will be used to help update the sections referenced above and will help inform potential updates to the rest of the comprehensive plan. Later this year, staff will bring the revised sections back to the Planning Commission for the further review and for public hearings. Before opening the public hearing, I understand staff has a presentation to set up the discussion. Libby?
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, commissioners, members of the audience. My name is Libby Grage. I'm the planning manager in the Planning, Community, and Economic Development Department, and I do have a quick presentation, although I probably don't need to do it because you did such a good job of introducing this item. I do have just a quick, for those watching at home and in the audience, and Planning Commission members, kind of an update on what's coming up in our overall comprehensive plan update process. We've got a climate team meeting coming up tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, and that is a hybrid meeting. The regular Planning Commission meetings in March are looking to be likely dedicated to Parks and Recreation element, so we'll be moving on to that. There is an open house, a public community open house scheduled for March 20th. We'll be doing some more advertising on that here in the coming days and weeks. And then moving farther along, of course, through the rest of the spring and summer, we'll be working on these other elements that you have not seen yet: the climate element, environment and conservation, economic development, and Parks and Rec, as I mentioned already, with the goal of, in June, having a fully integrated and updated comprehensive plan document that will be ready for public review and proceeding through the review and adoption process. As the chair mentioned, the capital facilities and utilities elements have been discussed at the Planning Commission over the last couple of meetings. The next steps with the capital facilities and utilities elements are to, after this public hearing, gather the feedback that we've received and make appropriate updates to the goals and policies as needed. We are also still working on completing updates to the background information that is a companion to the goals and policies. So that's kind of all of the inventory information, the forecast of future needs, kind of all of the technical information that goes along with the capital facilities and utilities elements. And then finally, compiling the capital facilities and utilities elements into, with the rest of the elements for a complete document that will be available for public review in June, hopefully. June is our goal. As a reminder, the capital facilities element identifies existing publicly owned facilities, current capital facility needs, future needs to serve the growth anticipated in the land use element, and how to fund them. Capital facilities in the city of Anacortes include water systems, stormwater, sewer, parks and recreation, police and fire protection facilities and services, and transportation. This is just a quick overview of some of the proposed updates to those goals and policies, and kind of a reminder of there wasn't a lot of update. There was some reorganization, some fixes to capitalization, grammar. There were updates to the level of service standards for the different facilities and services that are necessary for development. And also, one of the other key ones was to develop a funding prioritization process and criteria to guide future funding decisions. I'm just going to talk about both the capital facilities and utilities element at once, if that's all right. So the utilities element of the comprehensive plan shows how utility providers will serve the growth that's anticipated in the UGA in locations and densities that are proposed in our land use element. And utilities for the city of Anacortes include electrical, telecommunications, and natural gas. And as part of developing the utilities element, again, there will be a background information component of this element that goes along with the goals and policies that will have all of the detailed inventory information and the information that we're able to get from the utility companies to identify how they're planning for serving the growth in the Anacortes UGA. And there were just very minor proposed revisions to the goals and policies that we talked about. One was to update a policy about the city's fiber network, just to reflect the current status. And then there was also a 2021 comprehensive plan update docket item that is included, and that was a goal with new policies around increasing recycling and composting. That's my presentation. That's my introduction. So unless there's any questions, I'll step back.
Commissioners, any questions of staff before I open the public hearing? I do have a comment and a question. I was very happy to see, not only in your bullets tonight, but in other places as we're going through the process, the use of the term prioritization, and that we're looking to improve how we realize we can't do everything, so to structure a process for prioritizing our most important things and things that we get the most return from. So I keep repeating it because that's where we need to go, please. And the other one, in gathering information, more of a question, in gathering information from public utilities, have we started receiving any pushback from telecom providers in providing operational details in their plans, given that the city is now a competitor with telecom? Or are they continuing to cooperate in spite of that?
Not that I'm aware of. We're still in the process of reaching out to the different utility providers, and so that's still in process, but so far, not that I'm aware of.
Good. If there are no further questions, I will open the public hearing. This is the opportunity for members of the public to comment on the capital facilities and utilities sections of the Anacortes Comprehensive Plan and the proposed updates. Each speaker is asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes, and to that end will be guided by the traditional colored lights. I believe the yellow light is your 30-second warning. Each speaker is asked to please state for the record their name and city of residence. I'll look to those in attendance. Seeing none, do we have any online?
We do not.
Negative? Okay. Okay, seeing no participation, we will officially close the public hearing. Any further questions from the commissioners? Any second thoughts from our last meeting? Okay. Moving to our next agenda item, which is 6A, the 2025 Comprehensive Plan Update, the Housing Action Plan, or HAP, strategies discussion. This is a continuation from several prior meetings. I believe we pretty much finished the 2.5.x section, although there was a few places that we noted that we were going to return to, but perhaps I should, since you stayed at the podium, I'm going to guess I should turn to you to bring us back up to the starting point. Libby?
Thank you. Yes, so as you mentioned, the Planning Commission has been working through each of the recommendations with the teams reporting out at the last few meetings, their thoughts and recommendations. Tonight, so in your packet, you have an updated discussion draft of the proposed amendments to implement the HAP recommendations, and I made some updates to that document based on last meeting's discussion, and I highlighted those in yellow just so it would catch your eye. There was one item that I did want to follow up on regarding the conversation that we had about Old Town and housing types allowed in the Old Town designation. Unfortunately, we were not able to provide recommendations for these items that are listed below yet. These are something that staff is still working on and will bring to you at future meetings, hopefully sooner rather than later. And if there are other items that the commission wants to discuss tonight, we can obviously do that too. So just following up on the Old Town Zone allowed housing types, at the last meeting, the Planning Commission recommended that in the Old Town Zone, well, I'll just bring it up. If I can find it. So the Planning Commission recommended that triplex and townhouse housing types be added as permitted in the Old Town Zone, subject to alley loading requirements and also maximum size on units for each of those types of housing. And I stated that we would need to look at the comprehensive plan land use element to make sure that this change doesn't require additional amendments to the land use element of the comp plan. And I did look back and found that in the you might recall our discussion, this has been a while now, but the land use designations, we had a, we had a revision tracker that had each land use designation, so residential low density, medium density, high density, Old Town, and then the commercial and mixed use zones, and there were changes that were proposed to the language within each of those that identifies what types of anticipated development are, or what types of development are anticipated in those areas in the future. But I reminded myself that, or I found that that was actually proposed for the Old Town Zone to describe other dwelling types such as cottages, triplexes, and townhomes may be allowed under certain circumstances in the Old Town Zone. So that's all to say that it appears that the comp plan and the proposed change in the development regulations are consistent. And I think I may have given you the impression that we hadn't done that, and I just completely forgot. So I just wanted to bring that up to make sure you were aware.
Libby, while you're on that page in my notes, and yours were probably better than mine because you probably went back and listened to the video again, I also had 2.5.7 back on that, where you had the list of items we were going to come back to. I also had 2.5.7 as my notes be, but we don't need to solve it in real time. Just make a note to check and make sure we don't have something else to do there.
Do you have written down what that was regarding?
I just had a note written in that
Okay.
box that said we were going to come back to it in a future meeting.
No, Ms. Grange, is that the one that we went over early on, well, middle last week?
It could be. Let me just find my notes here. Okay, so, yeah, 2.5.7 was related to the development standards for service areas and mechanical equipment. And I think that was a situation where that was omitted from the draft regulation. So I think we talked about it, but I didn't have anything to show on the screen as far as code amendments, so.
Yeah. I see it's been added this time, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So as I mentioned, I did go through and make the changes and highlighted the things that I changed. If there are any questions about any of those items or discussion that the commission would like to have, happy to do that. But as I mentioned, there are still some remaining items that we need to come back to you on. So I don't have much more to present than that.
Not seeing any hands raised, so let me just page through real quick and make sure that I didn't have any. That'll give everybody
Sure.
a chance to research deeper as well.
Sure. Would you like me to just, oh,
I'm just looking to see where I've got any further notes. I think I'm clean. Libby, the only other note I have is would the best way to reference it be page 32 of 42? Would that get you there? Well, that jumps, doesn't it? There you go.
Yeah.
The open box that's up in the upper right-hand quadrant, I had a note written in there that staff was going to provide something there. Is that still an open item?
it is. This is related to open space standards for supportive housing types. And this is where there has been some new guidance that came out from Commerce that we would like to review, and then we would add, yes, we would add in the open space requirement for supportive housing at that time when we make the recommendations for the rest of those use types.
Gentlemen, that's all the open items I had there. Anyone else have anything for the good of the cause? Thank you, Libby.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is item 6B, Planning Commission Rules of Procedure discussion. We've tried a couple of times. We're hoping to have all 7 members present before acting on that item. I do note that officially we can make changes if we have a supermajority, which is only 6, but we're also failing that this evening. Would anyone, we can still discuss if anyone has other items that they'd like to have considered. My notes and my recollection is that specifically what was under review was whether or not to add RCW 35A as a referenced item in section 1.1. And we seem to have a general consensus of those who were present and also feedback from city staff that it would be perfectly fine and not create any issues to do so. But again, we cannot act on that this evening or in the past meetings. Does anyone have any other things that we would like to put into the bucket for consideration once we have the requisite number of people?
Just, I did see the email that Sherry printed out for us from about rules of procedure, and I don't know if that's something we need to discuss. Just talking about mandating public participation as central. It sounds almost like more of a recommendation than, anything in terms of not changing the rules per se. But I don't know if anybody else said it, if you guys read that yet. Oh, sorry, yep, darn it. I blame Paul. I'm normally good about that, Sorry, I was saying there was I guess a late breaking email that Sherry printed out for us with just a recommendation from outside on the rules of procedure, and just didn't know if that was worth talking about, that's all. Are you shaking your head? It's not worth talking about? Oh, okay.
It was a short one, as I recall, and didn't it refer to the same 35A that,
It did. I think it just kind of adds some words about, I don't know, sounds like not happy that maybe public participation, the person doesn't feel like is being used well enough, I guess.
what we can consider when we have everyone here, it appears that the writer is suggesting that we go a little bit further than including RCW 35A by reference, but also elaborate that the point is public participation.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, okay, but yeah, nothing urgent.
Anything else, commissioners? If not, we will turn to item 7, Planning Department update. John, good to have you back.
Good evening, Planning Commission members. I'm John Coleman, Director of Planning, Community, and Economic Development. So I apologize for missing last week's meeting, but in the meantime, earlier this week, there's been some action on our urban growth area expansion request that we submitted to the county. As a reminder, we requested a little over 100 acres of city-owned land that is adjacent to the ACFL be included into the urban growth area so that the city can manage it. So it can come into the city instead of being under a county jurisdiction. The County Board of County Commissioners had a public hearing on it yesterday and said yes, they would like to docket it, and they're very supportive of the concept of, preserving more ACFL land. So the next point of the process is that goes into the county's 2025 comprehensive plan update cycle and processed with the rest of their comp plan updates, much like we're doing. It's their process, and they'll at that level they'll be able to make a determination as to whether or not the land we requested to come into the urban growth area will be formally put into the urban growth area on their maps, which they seemed very supportive of. So those will be going through public hearings over the next several weeks and months, and I'm not sure when the county is going to be making their, Planning Commission making recommendations on their comp plan. They're a little ahead of us. They started they have all of their comp plan amendments available already, which is a little bit shocking that they're so far ahead. But we're looking to have all of ours in June or July, so not too far behind. So similar process to what we're doing. Our application for the urban growth area expansion is part of their process now. Should it become part of the urban growth area at the end of their process, then we'll have the opportunity to annex those properties into the city, and then it'll officially be within city limits. And that would happen after the end of this docket, after the end of this urban growth area, after the end of the comprehensive plan updates cycle, which is supposed to be done at the end of this year. So maybe in 2026, if there's opportunity for us to do so, staff-wise, we will potentially be annexing that. But not putting the cart ahead of the horse. First, it still has to go through the public hearing process. So that was some good news that we received. And of course, just another reminder, Libby just pointed this out a few minutes ago, but we're having our open house number 3 on March 20th, Wednesday night, for our comp plan update. And that's all I have to report for the Planning Commission tonight.
Thank you, John. Anybody have any questions? Appreciate it. Absent anything for the good of the cause, I will declare the 2026, February 26, or 25, February 26th, Planning Commission meeting closed.